Okay. Welcome to Trauma Recovery Anonymous, the podcast. My name is Richard, and I am your host. For those people who suffer with trauma, there's a terrible sense of grief of the loss of the past and how it intrudes upon our lives. And dealing with that on a daily basis can cause lots of sadness and remorse and depression and despair about the past and things you can't change, or all that kind of stuff can cause a terrible amount of grief. And so I've been searching high and low for anyone who's an expert in the field of grief, or just more knowledgeable or wiser in the field of grief. And this morning's guest is, without a doubt, one of the top, I believe. Maria Belanic is a grief educator and counsellor. She's going to talk about grief now and how she got into the business of grief and the kind of coping skills she offers. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass you over to Maria.
Thank you so much, Richard, and I am honored to be on your show and also to speak about a topic that is close to my heart, of course, and one that I hope that your audience can gain inner wisdom for their own journey. Because really that is the crux sometimes of grief, is we, as a griever, people say the cliches, they do the platitudes, they tell you to move on, get over it, all the things that all of us hear. And many grievers, when they feel that they can't move on, when they're like, but I'm missing my person, I want to talk about them, they're kind of like, well, what's wrong with me? Why am I keep doing this? And I want to let your audience know that there is nothing wrong with them. I've walked the journey. I know what it is to stare in the mirror and not know who is staring back, and asking these questions of, what did I do wrong? Where did I fail? How did I get here? And many of us know our own stories. It's looking at the person that's there and kind of like feeling, I don't know who I am anymore. You not only have lost the person, you lose your identity, your self-worth. And part of grief is saying you are the expert. There can be experts in the field. However, you are going to be your own expert in your own grief. Because even though loss is universal, grief is personal.
That's wonderful. Yeah. When I talk with clients myself, I'm going to turn off my camera here. It's going to be an audio interview when it goes to the public. So just to improve our sound, I'm going to turn off my camera. You can leave your camera on if you wish, just to improve the sound.
I can leave. Oh, okay.
Okay. So anyway, what I want to say to you is, when I work with clients, I try to tell them that it's like the victim and the survivor. So the younger aspect of us suffered the loss. So again, when my father died, it kind of destroyed me. By that time, I was 27 years of age, and today I'm 65. So the 27-year-old version of me who's lost his father is the person who suffered that event. And I'm the 65-year-old man who's a survivor looking back down the tunnel of what happened in the past. It didn't happen to the person I am today. It happened to a younger aspect of me. And my idea is that we try and give that baggage back to a younger aspect. But I know that not everyone would embrace my teachings or my therapy. And so, again, I'm looking for other people who have other ways of approaching grief that might work for somebody else that doesn't fit in with my ideas.
And that, I really thank you for that, Richard, because what we find is many counselors, sometimes it's basically saying, this is my way or you're doing it wrong. I believe that there are so many avenues in grief, and each person will find who fits for them. And that is so true, because my philosophy is more about healing and forgetting. When someone has passed away, we will always remember it. And as you say, depending on the age of when someone passed away, as we move forward in our own ages, grief actually softens. And it's not that we're going to forget who the person was. And you're so right in saying we're not the same person that experienced the grief back then. We've actually had to change because of grief. And at times we may not know that. I actually envision, and I've come to realize this, that at times grief can almost be like holding our breath. We hold the tension, we hold the stress, we hold all the things that are bottled in, which we have a difficult time of releasing. The releasing of, let's say, the guilt, the shame, the what ifs, the could haves. Sometimes we feel that we've had control, that we could change the situation. And many of us know we have no magic power to change any situation. However, our brains want to find a reason of why. We want to lay blame to something. We want to have this control. And when we don't have that, there's also a tension to that, if that makes sense.
It really does. There's a couple of things that you brought up for me that kind of resonate with me. And I know I don't want to go back to my stuff because this is all about what you can offer. I'm kind of paused in room for thought about what you said. It's kind of struck me quite deeply. So I'm going to hold off for a moment and ask you to share a bit more, and I'll come back to what I was thinking about. It just you've knocked me a bit with your approach. I didn't consider it in my own work, and it's got me thinking. So again, carry on, and I'll come back to you if I feel it's pertinent to come back to it, okay?
Oh, definitely. Well, just to tell you a little bit about my story. So my oldest son, Stefan, was diagnosed at 16 with an incurable blood cancer. So for 11 years, we did that roller coaster of hospital waits, the rooms, the surgeries, the crises, of not knowing what was next. And even through all of that, we kind of push through it. You do what needs to be done. And I didn't realize at the time that there was a lot of stress on top of, say, family life, on top of work life. And then after when he died, it just felt like this emptiness, this numbness. The world kept moving on. But in loss, my world had shattered. It now felt numb. It felt empty. But you're still expected to carry on. You're still expected to do everything else that you've done beforehand. And yet you don't feel like you're the same person anymore because something inside has altered, has shifted, and we don't have a name for it. And a lot of times we are given the 5 stages of grief. This is where you're supposed to be. This is how you're going to get over it. That, people talk about you need to get through it. There's a silver lining at the end. I call the BS on that. In the sense of saying, we're not going to forget the person who mattered to us. And to say to someone, oh, you have to get on and move on and heal. Sometimes those words, how they land as if you're telling someone, you got to forget about that they ever existed. You got to forget, don't ever mention their name again. And we want you to get back to who you were beforehand. So many people, that's what we're going for. We're trying to get back to who we were before. The expectations of what someone else has, even our own expectations. And at times we're afraid of moving forward because it's like, what will that mean? What will life look like? And in some ways, feels like there's 2 paths. There's the path of, if you move forward, you're going to forget that they ever existed. Or you're going to feel stuck because you haven't moved forward. So there's a fear. And many of us, I was one of those people that remained what some people will call stuck. I call it the in-between, the limbo. You do things on autopilot, but you're not fully present.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, what I want to bring back to, and what you shared now, it's all coming together. I believe we have 6 responses to danger. We know 5, flight, freeze. And then there's fawn, was brought out recently. And there's also fate and acceptance. I believe that many of us get stuck in between fight and flight, in the state of freeze and fawn. Especially around grief or trauma, we get stuck in freeze and fawn. And freeze and fawn were very healthy when we were children. So if you were a child living in a home and there's fighting going on, dysfunction going on, you couldn't leave the house, you couldn't defend yourself, you'd shut down, you'd disassociate, you'd shut down mentally and emotionally, you'd withdraw, isolate, be introverted, be socially awkward, you might faint, you might sleep, you might hibernate. There was practices of freeze that were very healthy for a child. And then the fawn was people pleasing, pretending you're okay when you're not, putting on a brave face, wearing a mask, all these kind of behaviors. I think very much when we suffer trauma or grief, we get stuck in freeze and fawn. And the problem is freeze and fawn were very healthy as children. But growing up into adulthood, we have to put away childish things, the Bible says, and embrace more adult responses like flight, fight, faith, and acceptance. And fight is basically just getting up and walking away. If you're around cousins or relations or family who are trying to help and they're just going you crazy, just get up and leave the room. Go for a walk, go for a run, go for a cycle, go for a swim, go to a different room, walk away from the person, place, whatever that is. And then a fight is basically asking somebody, saying, listen, you dealt with grief. How did you manage it? How did you cope? What kind of things did you do? And whatever they did, copy what they did. And if it works for you, put that onto your arsenal. If it doesn't work for you, discard it. And learn from other people how they dealt with grief, so it will be better for you. The fate is to accept that there is a God, that forget about whether the chicken or the egg came first. Understand that he wants to take care of you and your lost loved one, and that he will take care of you if you meet him on his terms, not on your terms. And then acceptance is to understand that your loved one has left this plane of existence. He's now safely in the arms of our Father in his mansion in heaven. And he would want you to carry on and be strong for those left behind, for your husband and for your other children and so on, for his siblings or her siblings, depending on who you've lost. And to kind of, in the Christian faith, there's what they call a month's mind. So for a month, or in some Asian traditions, it's 60 days. So for that period of time, you can pull your hair out, you can wail, and you can fast, and you can wear sackcloth and just be in a really grieving, like overkill grief, just get all that grief out. And then at the end of your 30 or 60 days, you have what's called a month's mind. You invite all the family over to celebrate the lost loved one's life memorial. People talk about him and they chat about him and talk about his good points and his bad points and take up memories and photo albums and videos you might have with the family and basically share this on a month's mind. And you might have that month's mind every month for about 6 months with family and friends. And then maybe the number of people will dwindle down. So it's just the most important people. But you're not doing it alone. The big problem is we get into our trauma or our grief alone, and we don't share with other people. We think that no one else is bothered. They're getting on with their lives, and we're the only one who's grieving. When everyone else is trying to hold it in because we've fallen apart, they're trying to hold it together because we've lost it. But if we can kind of allow people to be a part of our grieving process, again, with your trauma, if we keep our feelings secret and put on a mask and do the fawning and pretend we're okay, people will think we're okay, and we're there destroyed, wondering why they're not helping us. And the face we're putting on is saying we're fine, fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and egotistical. We have to find some way of letting people know how we really feel, not to be fixing or saving us or allowing us to have a poor me party, but just to get advice and suggestions about how to deal with this, how other people deal with this, and to deal with it together and get them to grieve with you. And maybe the healing will be in grieving with somebody else. I mean, it's not only you who's lost a son. Your husband did too. It's not only you who lost a sibling. His siblings lost, and so on, and grandparents and aunts and uncles and his friends. To have a month's mind. And again, when I say you, I'm not talking about you. I'm not kind of finding fault with your grieving. But if we can find some way of allowing other people. So for me with trauma, I've realized I had to stop keeping my depression to myself. I had to go and tell my family, my parents, especially my father, to say, I feel really depressed. Sometimes I feel suicidal. This is what I feel like. Have you ever felt that way? And he said, yes, when your mum died and when your two brothers died and blah, blah. And this is how I coped. And he says the things he did. And then I copy what he did. And if it works for me, well and good. And if it didn't, I don't do that. But it helped me to connect with other people in grief. And in that kind of recovery from trauma, they're not alone. Other people have done this, felt this way the same day, and they've done. So again, I've gone too far, but that's the idea that we don't keep it to ourselves.
And I love how you have said about the monk's mind. And part of that is actually when we think of sharing. And you're right. There's so many people in grief that are told not to share. And that is really when we think of witnessing. Witnessing is allowing the people who are grieving to share, so that way they are not alone. They can share their vulnerabilities, their fears, their emotions, their thoughts in a way that feels supportive. And really, that is basically, as a grief coach, what I do, in the sense of I am there to listen to people. I'm not there to judge anyone of how they're doing grief. And I know that you don't either. And it really is. It's about saying to someone, okay, I am here to support you. Share your story with me of what is it that you need. And you're so right. A lot of times in grief, we don't know the kind of support that we need or how to ask for support. But I do love how the villagers or the family gets together, whether, a month at the beginning and then later on, where they keep the person in their thoughts and in their presence. And I think that is so important. I mean, I believe that that is very important in the sense of keeping the person who passed away.
Very true. My parents.
In their essence.
Sorry, Maria, I cut across. I thought you were finished. My parents, who both passed away, we only talk about them on their birthday. We don't visit the grave anymore. We don't have a month's mind. They're both dead. My mother died of cancer maybe 30 years ago. My father died of strokes maybe nearly 20 years ago. But it's a case of we don't talk about them enough. We don't sit down as a family and say, do you remember Dad did this and Mum did this? And remember we did with this holiday, whatever. We don't give them life in our lives, we don't do it enough. We kind of talk like it's Dad's birthday yesterday, and we go to Mass and say a prayer on his Mass, and Mum's birthday, we'll say a prayer, whatever. But we don't do enough. And again, we're spread all over the world. I'm in Thailand, and my sister's in England, and my brothers are across Ireland in different areas, and they got their own lives and their own families, and in-laws and outlaws. And there's probably no space from our parents in our lives as such. But I think it would be cool to sit down one day with the family and say, listen, let's reminisce about and his good faults, but also his bad faults, his crankiness and his whatever, and what he did to you. And don't be afraid to paint all of his, we don't put someone on a pedestal, he's a saint, and we know he's not a fully saint, so to put me on a pedestal, I'm no saint, you have to say, well, Richie had his faults too, and so that kind of thing. I think it'd be great, like you said, to have a month's mind, make it a habit. Get the family to say, okay, we're going to have a month's mind for your son or your brother or your dad or your mum or grandparent, or a 6-month mind or a 3-month mind, and we're going to have a meal and we're going to just talk about them. I think that would help an awful lot in people grieving and also trauma and getting rid of depression and despair and whatever, to say, okay, let's talk about this and let's share as a group all the different ways we deal with depression. And then you get your grandmother and your parents and your brothers all sharing there, and you take notes and you try all their things, whatever. So that's a kind of a good idea too, I think.
And that is so true in that aspect. And it's not about putting people on a pedestal. It's talking about the memories that you have of them. I mean, many of the people that I speak to will say that depending on how long they've had with them, there are, depending on, did you have a lifetime with them? Did you have like 3 years with them? People will share what they remember. And you're so correct in the sense of, we don't put anyone on a pedestal. It's the good, the bad, and the ugly all together. It's talking about them, remembering them, sometimes their sense of humor, their funniness. And not only does it help the family, it also shows to other people, to even strangers, they get to know who your person was. They get the essence of them also. And one of the things that I did want to circle back to was when you said about faith. And yes, faith is important depending on what someone's faith is. And I do always say to people, you can be angry with God. God can take it, and that's okay. Have that conversation. And really, that's what grief is at times. It's a conversation with God, with yourself, with your family members, with other people, in saying where you're at. I envision like the monk's mind. I use something that I created, which is called the CARE framework. And I use CARE as an acronym in regards of saying you have compassion for yourself, for where you are right now, not where you think you should be, and not where you were maybe a year ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's where you are right now. And then the second is acknowledging your thoughts, your feelings, without judging them, without deciding that they mean something. As humans, we have thoughts, and all of a sudden we have to look for a meaning for them. And we don't need to do that. We just want our thoughts and feelings to just be. The third, the R, is for releasing the guilt, the regret, the shame, those endless what ifs or should haves. And that is to say, to release what you're carrying that was never meant to be held. And a lot of times we feel that releasing is about forgetting, and it's not, because we can forget and not feel the pain. We can move on from the scar rather than the wound. And then that brings us to exhale, because a lot of us, when we hold our breath for so long, we forget what it feels like to let go. So exhale is actually carrying both loss and love in the same breath.
That's powerful. That really is wonderful, Maria. It's a gorgeous concept, CARE. You broke it down so well. It's a whole program in one go. Like, you know, it's the kind of tool that my audience would use in a flash. If you can just put this into your daily living, your life will change completely. Again, and about the faith, I do believe that we're allowed to claim miracles. I'm a Christian that I'm not a member of a church. I'm not a member of any denomination. I don't do man-made religions. But I do believe that the Bible says that each of us can claim miracles. That we're allowed to, the lost, the forlorn, the church hurt, the disenfranchised, the broken, the damaged, the depressed, the anxious, the grieving. We're allowed to claim miracles. They were created for us. Jesus said that, you know, he expects all of us to do the miracles he committed, and even greater miracles than he did, you know, and we're allowed to, and when he worked with people in the Bible, he didn't give the miracles to the Christians and the Pharisees. He gave it to the lost, the rejected, the lepers, the broken, even the Romans for his slaves and for their daughter. He gave it to people you wouldn't expect to get it. You think you want to be a really religious person and know the Bible back to front and be a member of a denomination to get miracles. But he said, no, I'm not trying to convert the converted. I give miracles to people who need it, which are people who suffer with grief and trauma. So I think it's a very big part of this program is healing what I call the hole in our soul. And I believe that it's not the event itself, the grieving event that we have a problem with. It's the energy attached to the grief. That's what eats away at our soul. So, because again, we can't be talking about an event that happened 30 years ago. If I live today, my whole life is today. Everything about my life is today on my podcast with you here, my wife downstairs, my children and my mother-in-law, my job and the house and everything to do with today. This is where my whole life is. So I can't be focusing on something that happened 30 years ago if my life is here today. But what is it of that event that I'm bringing into my present that's eating away at me? And it's the energy around us, whether it's sadness or it's anger or frustration or whatever. There's an energy attached to the grief, or to the loss of that person, or to the loss of something of myself in that loss that affects me today. And that's the energy I need to deal with. Whatever that is, that energy is for you, for me, or for somebody else. It can be different for all of us. You might be missing your son because you're a mum. I might be missing my father because I'm angry at him. You know, we all have an energy about the loss That's not wrong. It's actually just our energy. But we need to detach from that, find some way of healing that energy so we can let go and move on.
And I love how you say it. And part of sometimes is the language we may use may be different. And I totally agree, is that we're not living in that moment of when they passed away, because that has already happened. We are living in the energy of, as you said, I'm missing my son. And there's also, we attach not so much meaning, but we also attach energy to our role, to who our person was. For myself, it's because it was my son, it's as a mother. For yourself, it was your dad. So you're coming from the aspect of a son. Whether you were angry, whether it was love, it's still energy that's there. And it has in some ways propelled us into what we are doing today. And I love how you said there is no judgment on that. There is no right or wrong. It's the path that we chose of where to go, of how to use that energy, of helping others in their journey to walk. As I like to say, it's walking with grief, or it could be walking with trauma. It's basically knowing that it was there, something happened. We're not going to be in that happening or in that experience constantly. We're taking that experience and go, yes, it happened. And that's really where the witnessing comes in from, and the support is when others say, yes, that did happen. It was devastating. And now what? They're not
One thing
saying
I'll say,
get
Maria,
over it. Yeah.
sorry. One thing I'll say, Maria, you mentioned that it's a path we choose. I know that there are going to be some people who feel they didn't choose this path, that it was put upon them. Okay, so again, don't be put off by any language myself and Maria use. We're not. It's not a be all end all. Yes, you had to choose this, or you made the choice about this is how you're going to relate to your father. It could be circumstances caused you to relate to him in a certain way. So please don't get thrown by what Maria says or I say, that we're telling you there's a certain way of doing this. I can't do your energy for you. Maria can't do my energy for me, and I can't do Maria's energy for her. I can have an opinion of Maria's loss. Maria can have an opinion of my loss. I can have an opinion of your loss and your trauma. But that doesn't make my opinion right. It's only an opinion. But you know your story. Maria knows her story. I know my story in detail. We can have a chat here and kind of look over and kind of talk over on the surface level. But I can't see into Maria's soul. Maria can't see into my soul, and I can't see into the soul of the audience. So please don't feel as though what Maria and I are saying are like set in stone, and there's no kind of room for maneuverability. I hope that our conversation with Maria is going to enhance your ability to grieve in a way that's healthy for you. And I hope you'll maybe reach out to Maria and help and have her use her skills to help you grieve better. But know that as much as Maria and I are talking about grieving, it's not set in stone that Maria's way and my way are the only two ways. That's what we're trying to do in this program, is that there's many different ways. And again, I'm going to hand you back to Maria, but you want to just voice that I know Maria spoke about, that how we relate to our last one is a choice. But for some people, it isn't a choice. We're conditioned because of the relationship or the behavior of the other person or the circumstances we're in. So again, Maria, I hope I didn't mind me cutting in there with that.
Oh, no. And I thank you. And thank you for correcting me. That when I mentioned about choice, it's not about the choice of the relationship. It's the choice of the relationship with our own selves and how we walk with grief.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I misread that.
But I thank you for that, because you're right. In the aspect of the words that we say and how we frame it can land differently to each of us. And that's one of the reasons why in grief, it really is saying you are your own expert.
Yes.
And I love how you say that, Richard, because it's so true. yes, I can feel compassion for someone. I can witness them. What they feel, I cannot garnish, because what I felt in my loss was my own feelings. And so in that aspect, we can all sympathize, we can have compassion. Only the person in their experience will know exactly how they feel.
Definitely. Maria, I think I don't ever share this practice with you, and I'd like to share it with the audience if that's okay.
Oh,
We were
definitely.
talking, Maria spoke earlier on about having a conversation with God and with whoever, with your younger self. And it's a practice I learned, and I use it on both my parents, and I use it with God, and I use it with myself. And so what you do is, again, don't listen to the voices in your head saying this is rubbish. Just do it. Grab a sheet of paper. At the top of the page, you write "dear" and the name of that aspect of you, or the part of you who died. So your father, your mother, your brother, your sister. Dear, and then their name, okay? And at the bottom you put down love and your name today. So I put down dear dad, and then I put love Richard. And on this page, you're allowed to vent whatever you need to say to your father, mother, whoever it is. It can be anger, it can be resentment, it can be frustration, it can be blame. You can't hurt them. They're in heaven, in the mansion before them, in a father's mansion. They're safe and sound, and they want you to be able to move on. So you put your pen to paper and you write the most horrible letter, if that's what you need to write. And you can call your son, your father, your mother, the worst names imaginable. But you only have one page, so make sure what you need to say to be heard, you put down this page. And when you're finished, turn the page over. And then you use your non-dominant hand. So I'm left-handed, so I write with my left hand. When I turn the page over, I use my right hand, and I write at the top, Dear Richard. At the bottom, I write down, Love Dad. And because I'm writing with my non-dominant hand, I'm activating my subconscious mind. And within the subconscious mind is the memory of my father. And so it's my memory of my father's writing back to me. I won't be in control of what I write, because it's my subconscious mind. It's not my conscious mind. And when pen goes to paper, I'll be defending my father, allowing him to have his voice. And when you do this exercise, it'll blow you away, because what you write, you won't be in control of. It'll be your father talking back to you, your son or your mother, or whoever it is, writing to you saying, well, I'm very sorry you feel that way, but, and because it's with your non-dominant hand, it'll come out like a squiggle, like it's very hard to write. You don't know you write with that hand. It looks like an old person writing to you from the heavens, or a small child writing to you. It's really powerful exercise. You can use this to write to God. Dear God, you took my father away, you bastard. Whatever you need to say to God, you put it on a paper, attack God, whatever, then turn it over, and then you write down, Dear Richard, love God, and then have God write back to you with your non-dominant hand. Again, a good one is for your younger self. So today I'm 65 years of age, and a 27-year-old version of me lost a parent. I write to Dear 27-year-old Richard, love 65-year-old Richard, and then turn the page over and write down, Dear 65-year-old Richard, love 27-year-old Richard, and see what that takes me. The idea of this is not to brood or ruminate on the loss, but to find a way of gaining peace that you can move on in a healthy way. And you can have this conversation with your son or your father or your lost loved one as many times as you want, as long as you're not going to use it to brood or ruminate. And you can store these in a box and save them and read them over every year if you like. Or the best thing, if it's new to this, is just to burn them and flush them down the toilet and remove them from your psyche. But it's a wonderful way of having a conversation with yourself, with God, with your lost loved one, and be able to hear a different perspective back.
And that is so beautiful, Richard. You've actually up-leveled, because I do tell people to write letters, to write in their journal. Usually, I always say, write free form. Don't think about what you're writing. Just allow it to come out of your body when you're writing. But you definitely have added another dimension of that, and I love that. And definitely, as I mentioned, I think one other time, I've actually shared it with some of my clients. So I haven't asked them for their response.
That's okay.
Because in some ways, it's still very private. It's up to them whether they want to share or not.
Yeah, exactly. I don't ask for a response from my clients. I say, listen, this is for you, between you and your younger self or God. If you want to share it with, that's okay. But if you don't, I perfectly understand that this is your own personal journey, nothing to do with me. You don't need to get my approval. You don't need to get my permission or tell you if it's right or wrong. So don't share it with me if you don't want to. And I really would understand that. And that's the idea, is just to find a way of healing that. Maria, we're coming close to the end of our time. Are there 3 suggestions you could share with my audience, 3 tips, 3 coping skills that you could recommend in this moment, just for today, they could put into action today to find themselves in a better space?
Definitely. One is the grounding, in the sense of, it's not even about meditation, it's about breath. When we put our feet on the ground, put our hand, whether it's left or right hand, over our heart and take 3 deep breaths and exhale, it brings us to the present moment of who we are right now. One of the other tips, I do tell people to do journaling, and you've just upgraded the journaling.
Okay.
Or the letter writing, right? So that's a
Yep.
great tip. The other one is movement. Movement is actually very good, and that can also be done with breathing. Sometimes when we inhale, we just raise our arms up, and when we exhale, we bring it down. And many people, sometimes, I always say, and if a sound comes out when you're exhaling, that's okay. That is something that we need to release. And sound, when we're breathing in, we breathe in. And then when we exhale, we go, and we make that whooshing sound, or whatever sound comes out, and not to be surprised by it or to be frightened of it.
I love that. I use a sound with my clients. I have 4 sounds. One is actually 4. Yeah, 4. So there's a sigh. So again, and when you breathe, we're talking about breathing into your nose. People need to know that when you breathe into your mouth, you aggravate anxiety and panic. You're stored in your chest, and stress stored in your shoulders. When you breathe into your nose, it bypasses these areas and doesn't trigger your anxiety, panic, or stress. So always breathe into your nose. You can exhale through your mouth, no problem, but breathe into your nose, and you'll find you'll become less anxious or less stressed or less panicky when you breathe into your nose. So first breath is the sigh, but basically when you exhale, make sure you make a noise when you exhale. Oh, whatever it is, okay? Then you turn into a melodial sigh. So it could be a song, or it can be a tune or a hum, something, maybe a 9th symphony or something on the X breath. Yawning is very powerful. Our anxiety is stored in the body, and a big thing as children, when we get anxious, we would feign tiredness. So some of my parents have friends over at the house, and we'd be uncomfortable. We'd start yawning, pretending we're tired so we could go to bed, to be anxious. So allow yourself to yawn. Stretch your arms out wide, head back, and big breath in, and exhale the biggest yawn you can imagine. Really powerful for releasing all anxiety. For the stress you have in your body, a good cough. You're dragging up your demons from your soul, and you're just kind of casting it out. So dig down deep down into your soul, get up all that stress you have, and just cast it out for a few minutes and feel the release of that left your body. And the final one, if you don't know what that is, have a good laugh. Seriously, laughter is the food of the soul. So breathe into your nose, hold your breath, and then let out a belly. If you have to fake it, doesn't matter. Let out some sort of a laugh, or your belly ache, or giggling, whatever it is. Just allow yourself to laugh. And that exercise of laughing, you're feeding your soul. And then you'll find you do these in the shower. The great time in the shower, no one's around you. Do your melodial sigh, do your yawn, do your cough, do your singing in the shower. It's a thing you can do in private, but no one can see you doing it. And it's a great way of starting your day and finishing your day, is having a shower in the morning, a shower before bed. And just find yourself just releasing all this energy with your breath. Maria, thank you for coming on board. It was really great having you. I hope to have you on again. I have a children's program that I'd love you to come on board with too. So, folks, if you're dealing with grief, whether it's through grief of a loss of a loved one or through your trauma, please reach out to me. When I post this podcast conversation, I have all Maria's details in the chat. Okay, and basically reach out to Maria. I think she can help you greatly. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation this morning as much as I did. Maria, thank you very much for coming this morning.
Well, Richard, it's been a delight and an honor to be here with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.